The night wore a silver sheen. Moonlight dripped down the slick asphalt of Laurel Ridge Road, tracing the curve of the land like a whisper that refused to fade. The storm had passed an hour ago, leaving the world rinsed and quiet. Only the wind moved now, slow, measured, brushing against the pine needles that stood like watchmen at the roadside. A single car moved through the darkness. A dark blue sedan, its headlights slicing the damp mist in front of it. Inside sat Darnell Parker, 34, clean-cut, tired-eyed, wearing the quiet composure of a man who'd seen both the best and the worst of people, and chosen, somehow, not to harden. His hand rested on the steering wheel, thumb tapping the rhythm of a low jazz tune playing from the radio. He had just left the home of his aging father, who'd asked him again to come back home for good. But Darnell wasn't sure Brookfield was ready for him anymore. He was the kind of man who smiled even when the world didn't. A systems analyst in Atlanta, with a modest apartment, a good life, and long weekends spent visiting his family in the small town where he was born. Tonight, he was returning to his mother's house on Elmwood Avenue, the road that still remembered his bicycle tires from childhood. The night was supposed to be peaceful, ordinary. Then in the rearview mirror, red and blue lights bloomed. They cut through the dark like twin accusations. He blinked once, twice. The sound of a siren split the night, rising and falling like a judgment. His heart didn't race, but it did pause. "All right," he murmured to himself, easing the car to the shoulder. "Just stay calm." The sedan slowed, blinkers flashing. Tires hissed against the damp gravel as he came to a stop. The engine hummed softly, like something unsure whether to breathe or not. From behind, the police cruiser idled, its lights bathing the trees in a rhythm that could have been mistaken for danger itself. Deputy Nathan Reeves stepped out of the cruiser. He was 38, lean, with the posture of someone who'd spent a lifetime obeying the rules and believing that rules could never lie. The brim of his hat shadowed his face as he walked forward, flashlight beam trembling slightly over the road. He'd been on the force for 12 years, long enough to think he understood patterns, what belonged and what didn't. And this car, on this road, at this hour didn't. Reeves approached the window, flashlight glinting against the rain droplets that speckled the glass. Darnell rolled down the window slowly, both hands visible on the steering wheel. "Good evening, officer," he said, voice steady, polite. Reeves' flashlight
Do you know why I pulled
flicked
you over
over him.
tonight?
Face, dashboard, glove compartment, backseat. "Evening," Reeves replied, curt. "License and registration." Darnell reached carefully toward the glove compartment, narrating his every move, the way a man learns to do after too many warnings on too many news broadcasts. "Registration's in here," he said softly, opening the compartment. "License is in my wallet, back pocket." Reeves didn't nod. He just watched. Darnell handed over the papers, calm, composed, and waited as the deputy looked them over. "Everything all right, officer?" Darnell asked after a moment. Reeves tilted his head slightly. "You live around here?" "Yes, sir. Born and raised. Visiting my folks, Elmwood Avenue." The flashlight lingered another moment before Reeves spoke again. "Mind telling me why you were driving under the speed limit?" Darnell frowned slightly. "Didn't realize I was. Road's a bit slick. Didn't want to risk hydroplaning." Reeves' voice was low, thoughtful, but edged. "We've had some calls tonight. Suspicious vehicle matching your description, circling near the old industrial lot." Darnell looked confused. "Circling? Officer, I came straight down Ridge Road from my father's house." "Aha." Reeves circled the car, flashlight beam running along the trunk. "You sure about that?" Darnell's hands tightened briefly on the steering wheel. "Pretty sure, yes." Reeves' boots squelched in the mud as he came back to the driver's side. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." There was no reason given. But in the quiet, reasons didn't always need words. The air outside bit colder than before. Darnell stepped out slowly, raising his hands slightly, palms open, the universal language for "I mean no harm." The officer's flashlight caught the faint steam of his breath as he exhaled. "Turn around, please," Reeves instructed. "For what?" "Just routine questioning." Darnell swallowed hard. "You have any cause to?" "Sir, I'm asking you to cooperate." For a second, Silence expanded like a storm cloud. Then, without protest, Darnell turned around. Behind the cruiser, the forest rustled. Somewhere, an owl called. Somewhere else, a man tried not to feel small under another man's authority. Reeves spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. I've got one stopped, possible match to earlier description near Ridge Road. Requesting backup." "Copy that, Unit 4, came the voice through the static. Darnell looked over his shoulder. "You think I'm your suspect?" Reeves didn't answer directly. "Until I can confirm otherwise, I need to make sure everything's in order." "In order," Darnell repeated, almost to himself. "Always about order." He faced the forest again, eyes on the road that had carried him home since he was a boy. He thought of his father's voice. "Stay calm, son. They can't argue with calm." He thought of his mother, waiting up, porch light on, pancakes ready for morning. And he thought of how many times calm had saved him and how many times it hadn't. In the stillness of the stop, both men fought silent battles. Reeves, his training warring with doubt. He'd been told to trust his instincts, to act before danger acted on him. But something about this man didn't fit danger's face. His voice was measured. His demeanor, respectful. Yet Reeves' pulse was still high because authority doesn't always respond to truth. It responds to conditioning. Darnell, his patience warring with weariness. He knew this pattern. He'd lived this pattern. His friends had told him, "You're lucky, man. You got out of this town." But no one ever truly got out when their face fit a label. Another car approached, the hum of tires on wet asphalt. A second cruiser pulled in, headlights flashing once before dimming. Out stepped Deputy Cole, Reeves' partner for the night. Younger, quieter, more by the book. "What's the situation?" Cole asked. "Possible match," Reeves replied. "Vehicle similar to the one reported near the warehouse." Cole looked at Darnell, then back to Reeves. "He give you trouble?" "No. Not yet." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe it's not him." "Maybe," Reeves muttered. "But I want to be sure." Cole shrugged, stepping closer to Darnell. "Sir, do you mind if we take a quick look in your trunk?" Darnell hesitated. "What are you looking for?" "Just verifying the report." "Do you have probable cause?" Darnell asked, calm but firm. Cole's eyes flicked to Reeves, unsure. Reeves tightened his jaw. "Sir, if you don't have anything to hide, this'll go faster." The words hung heavy. They always did. After a long pause, Darnell exhaled. "Fine. Go ahead." He popped the trunk. Inside, a weekend bag, a neatly folded coat, and a box of books, history, philosophy, old college texts. Reeves scanned the contents with his flashlight. His expression didn't change. "See," Darnell said quietly. "Just a man going home." Cole lowered his flashlight. "Looks clear to me." But Reeves didn't move right away. His eyes lingered, as if truth required permission from fear before being accepted. Finally he nodded. "All right, you can close it up." Darnell did. The trunk clicked shut like the closing of a chapter that never should have been opened. As Reeves walked back toward his cruiser to run Darnell's plates, a dark SUV appeared at the bend in the road. Its headlights cut through the mist, slowing as it neared the scene. Reeves held up a hand, signaling it to stay back. But the SUV stopped anyway. The driver's door opened. Out stepped a tall man in a dark suit. Confident, composed. He looked between Darnell and Reeves, then spoke with quiet authority. "Is there a problem here, officer?" Reeves frowned. "Sir, please stay back. This is a police matter." The man took another step forward, the glow from the patrol car lights catching the gold pin on his lapel, the seal of Brookfield's mayor. "My name's Victor Parker," he said, voice level. "And that's my brother you've got standing in the cold." For the first time, Reeves froze. His mouth opened but no words came. Cole straightened, almost instinctively. "Mr. Mayor, this was just a routine stop." Victor's eyes flicked to Darnell. "Routine? You called backup for a routine stop?" Reeves stammered. "We had a report, sir. A vehicle fitting his description." Victor cut him off. "A report? A vague report? And you thought my brother a man coming home from his father's fit your description? The wind rustled through the trees, carrying silence between them. Darnell didn't speak. He didn't need to. The expression on Reeves' face said enough: the recognition, the recalibration, the quiet panic of realizing how perception had built this entire moment. Victor stepped closer to his brother, hand firm on his shoulder. "Get back in the car, Darnell." Reeves finally found words. "Sir, this was just procedure." "Procedure," Victor repeated, turning toward him. "Then maybe we need to revisit what your procedures look like." Without another word, Victor guided Darnell back into his car. Reeves stood in the rain, the weight of his assumptions dripping heavier than the storm that had passed. The two brothers drove off, taillights fading into the dark. Behind them, Reeves watched, his reflection flickering in the red-blue pulse of his cruiser lights. He didn't feel righteous. He felt hollow. The radio crackled faintly. "Unit 4, status update?" Reeves lifted the receiver but didn't answer. He just stood there, the night pressing close, the road stretching long. In the distance, thunder rolled again, a reminder that storms, even when they pass, tend to circle back. Morning in Brookfield always began the same way: the slow hum of lawnmowers, the clang of the church bell, the smell of coffee drifting from corner diners. But that morning, a different sound cut through the small-town calm: the sharp buzz of phones, the ping of notifications, and the whisper of a story beginning to spread. Someone had filmed the stop. Just a 30-second clip, captured from a distance but enough. It showed flashing lights, an officer's voice, a man standing in the rain, and another man stepping out of a dark SUV with the unmistakable posture of authority. No one in town needed subtitles. They knew that voice. They knew that man. They knew the mayor. By sunrise, the clip had made its way to every local feed. Traffic stop involving mayor's brother sparks debate. Was it profiling? Brookfield divided. Routine check or bias in action? At the corner cafe, old men sipped black coffee and scrolled on their phones. At the barbershop, talk swelled louder than clippers. At the high school, students watched the video in silence between classes, some defending the officer, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Brookfield had never liked confrontation, but now it was sitting right in the middle of breakfast. Darnell Parker sat at the kitchen table, the morning light spilling through lace curtains onto a plate of untouched pancakes. His mother, Martha, moved quietly around the kitchen, pretending not to watch him. The television murmured from the counter, a local reporter's voice filling the small house. Mayor Victor Parker has not yet released a formal statement, but sources confirm the man stopped last night was indeed his younger brother, Darnell Parker, who currently resides in Atlanta. Martha turned the volume down, but the silence afterward felt heavier. "You don't have to watch that," Darnell said softly. "I don't," she replied, her voice low. "But everyone else will." He sighed, pushing his plate away. "It was just a stop. I cooperated. I didn't even raise my voice." "That's what scares me," she said. "You did everything right and still—" Her words trailed off. Outside, a car slowed in front of the house, then kept going. The air felt too still, like the pause before thunder. Darnell stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the quiet street that had once been childhood. He could still see the ghosts of bike rides and ball games, of neighbors who smiled without suspicion. Now he saw curtains twitch, eyes watching. He whispered almost to himself, "I came home to take care of family, not to become a headline." Across town, the fluorescent lights of the Brookfield Sheriff's Department buzzed with the low hum of unease. Deputy Nathan Reeves sat at his desk, hands clasped, staring at a report he couldn't finish. His supervisor, Sheriff Melvin Hart, stood at the window of his office, blinds half drawn. Hart was a man built of old-school discipline, calm voice, sharp temper. He'd run this department for 20 years and believed every mistake had an explanation, even if it was one you didn't want to hear. "Reeves," Hart said, without turning. "Sir, you realize the mayor's office called twice this morning?" Reeves swallowed. "Yes, sir." Hart finally faced him. "What were you thinking last night?" "Routine stop," Reeves said. "Suspicious vehicle, possible match to—" Hart cut him off. "Don't quote policy to me." I saw the footage. Reeves' jaw tightened. Then you know I followed procedure. I know you embarrassed this department, Hart said, his tone like gravel. And I know every reporter within 50 miles wants a statement. Reeves looked down at the papers in front of him. I didn't mean for it to. Mean? Hart stepped closer. Meaning doesn't matter. Optics do. You pulled over the mayor's brother and called backup like he was a fugitive. Reeves' eyes flicked upward. I didn't know who he was. That's the point, Hart said quietly. You didn't know but you assumed. The words hit harder than Hart probably intended. Reeves opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Hart sighed, softer now. You'll be on desk duty until further notice. Internal review starts today. Body cam footage, reports, everything. Reeves nodded slowly. Yes, sir. As the sheriff turned away, Reeves sat motionless. On his monitor, a still frame from his body cam glowed Darnell standing in the rain, calm, hands raised, eyes patient. For the first time, Reeves really looked at the man he'd stopped. And he didn't see a suspect. He saw a person he hadn't tried to understand. By mid-afternoon, Brookfield wasn't just talking, it was splitting. At the diner near Main Street, a group of older residents gathered, voices rising above clinking cups. Reeves did his job, one man insisted. You think he knew that fella was the mayor's brother? Come on. If it was any of us, no one would care. Across the booth, a woman shook her head. Doesn't matter who he was. You can't just stop people, 'cause they don't fit what you expect. At Hilltop Baptist Church, Pastor Renee Calhoun addressed a small crowd gathered for midweek fellowship. This isn't just about one stop, she said, her voice carrying. It's about how we see each other when uniforms and skin color get between us. Meanwhile, online debates turned sharp. Some posts called for Deputy Reeves to be fired. Others accused the mayor of using power to make an example. Everyone had an opinion. Few had the full picture. By sunset, reporters from nearby towns had arrived, parking their vans along Main Street. Microphones, cameras, headlines, all feeding on the tension that small towns never hide well. Mayor Victor Parker stood in his office, jacket off, sleeves rolled. Papers were spread across his desk, reports, drafts of statements, notes from advisors who all seemed to have different advice. Victor, said Linda Chin, his communications director, we can't stay quiet. Every hour we don't respond, it looks worse. I know, he said, pacing. But if I speak too soon, it looks like I'm protecting family. You are protecting family, Linda said gently. But you're also the mayor. People need to hear that you want fairness, not favoritism. He nodded slowly, leaning against the edge of the desk. The weight of dual roles pressed heavy, public servant and older brother. Finally, he spoke, almost to himself. We'll call for a review of the stop. Full transparency. Not because it's my brother, because it could have been anyone's. Linda jotted notes quickly. And the deputy? Let the process handle him. But I want the sheriff's report by morning. As he spoke, his phone buzzed again. Another reporter, another question. He ignored it, staring out the window toward the courthouse lawn where a few citizens were already gathering with signs. One read, routine stops shouldn't depend on skin. Victor exhaled. Brookfield's been quiet for too long, he said. Maybe this is what it takes to wake it up. The next morning, Sheriff Hart met with the town council in the conference room of City Hall. The air smelled faintly of coffee and tension. Reeves sat at the far end of the table, silent, his badge resting on the desk in front of him. Councilwoman Margaret Shaw, the oldest on the board, spoke first. Sheriff, what's your preliminary finding? Hart cleared his throat. Body cam shows Deputy Reeves initiated the stop under suspicion based on a vague vehicle description from earlier in the evening. No violation of protocol. Margaret interrupted. No violation? He called backup on a man standing calmly in the rain. A man with no record. Hart's jaw tightened. I said protocol, not judgment. Another councilman leaned forward. The mayor's right. We can't hide behind technicalities. People want to know if our officers are trained to think before they act. Reeves finally spoke, voice low. I didn't mean disrespect to anyone. Margaret's eyes fixed on him. Meaning isn't what people see, Deputy. They see what you did. The room fell silent. Hart ended the meeting with a curt nod. We'll issue a statement tonight. Full internal review underway. Reeves left the room last. As he walked down the hallway, his reflection in the glass door seemed to ask a question he wasn't ready to answer. That evening, Mayor Parker stood before the local press, his speech written but barely glanced at. Cameras clicked as he began. Brookfield has always taken pride in its sense of community, he said, voice steady. But community means accountability for every one of us. An internal review is underway regarding the stop involving my brother, Darnell Parker. I have full confidence in Sheriff Hart's process. But I also believe healing starts with conversation. So next week, we'll hold an open public forum at Brookfield High's auditorium for anyone who wants to speak, listen, and help us move forward. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Mayor, will your brother attend? Victor hesitated a moment. That's up to him. Will the deputy be there? Another pause. Yes, he said finally. He will. The room buzzed with murmurs and camera flashes. The story had begun as a roadside stop. Now it was a mirror, showing Brookfield parts of itself it had avoided for too long. Darnell sat on his porch, the glow from the streetlight painting halos on the wet pavement. He thought about the faces he'd grown up with, neighbors, teachers, officers, and wondered how many of them had watched that video and seen him not as Darnell, but as the black man in the clip. In another house across town, Nathan Reeves sat in the dark of his living room, the muted glow of his body cam replaying on his laptop. Each frame felt heavier than the last. The silence between words louder than any reprimand. Two men, same night, both staring at reflections of who they were and who they could be. And above them, Brookfield waited, restless, expectant, divided for the day the truth would have to speak out loud. The morning air hung heavy over Brookfield. Clouds draped the town in gray, as if the sky itself had paused to witness the day. Rain from the night before had left the streets glistening, reflecting the low hum of headlights and early commuters. By mid-morning, the auditorium at Brookfield High School was already filling. Parents, teachers, students, business owners, and curious citizens arrived in hushed clusters, their eyes scanning the crowd for familiar faces, their conversations threaded with tension. Inside, folding chairs stretched across the polished wooden floor. Microphones were stationed at the front. A podium awaited the mayor, flanked by the sheriff and deputies. Camera crews crouched along the perimeter, their lenses trained on the empty stage. Every whisper, every shuffle of feet, seemed louder than it should be. The room smelled of polished wood, damp coats, and anticipation. Darnell Parker stood near the back, his hands folded in front of him. His expression was calm, almost serene, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed the anxiety he carried. He had spent days reflecting on what he would say, yet he knew that no rehearsal could capture the weight of expectation, of judgment, of history pressing down. Across the room, Deputy Nathan Reeves lingered near the side entrance, hands stuffed into his pockets, jaw tight. He avoided eye contact, feeling the room's silent appraisal like a weight pressing against his chest. This wasn't just a forum. This was a reckoning for him, for Darnell, and for the town itself. Mayor Victor Parker entered last, his presence commanding yet tempered by visible apprehension. He paused at the podium, took a deep breath, and allowed the silence to settle over the crowd like a blanket. "Thank you all for coming," he began, voice steady but low. "We are here today not to assign blame quickly, but to face truths honestly. Brookfield has always prided itself on community. That pride is meaningless if it blinds us to injustice, if it allows assumptions to go unchallenged. Today we speak. We listen." Deputy Reeves, still in uniform, walked through the same streets, this time as a mentor for new recruits, emphasizing awareness, empathy, and the human side of policing. He nodded to neighbors not with caution, but with respect. Mayor Victor Parker oversaw new programs, expanding civic engagement, ensuring that lessons learned reached beyond this small town. His office worked closely with schools, churches, and community centers to build bridges where fear had once reigned. And on Laurel Ridge Road, at dusk, The last light shimmered across the asphalt, untouched by red and blue flashes. The town exhaled as one not perfect, but awake. A lesson had been learned, hard-earned and honest. Suspicion costs dignity, accountability costs nothing, and courage is born not from power, but from recognition of one another. The town remembered that night. They remembered the fear, the mistakes, the confessions, and the calm resolve that followed. And they remembered, most of all, that real change is quiet, steady, and relentless like the final glow of sunset across a road that had once been shadowed by doubt. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe for more hidden tales that reveal the shocking, untold truths behind real events. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Darnell's or Deputy Reeves' shoes? Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss another gripping story from our channel. Every view, like, and share helps uncover more stories that make us question assumptions, justice, and the world around us.